Hello and welcome all my joyful creators and all of my Longmire fans. This is Funday Monday, the Longmire Blanket, part 24. And my name is Cynthia with Cynthia's Joyful Creations. And I am so happy to start adding some feathers to our dream catcher. So now that everyone knows what this wonderful design is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give you a preview of what is to come. So we are going to be adding 5 feathers to the base of our dream catcher, and then we're going to go back and do a intricate design on the inside of our dream catcher. So just to give you a glimpse, this is the graph that I have drawn. So this is what it is going to simulate and look like. Okay? And today we are going to add this feather and we're going to add this feather. And then in the next segment we will add the last 3 feathers. And then we will come and we will do this intricate design on the inside of the dream catcher. And then these little sections here in the center, we will do that in the next section. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections before completing the dream catcher. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to share something with you. Today, in the introduction, you saw that we are only adding 3 colors today. And the colors that we are adding, the first color is chosen by Sylvia, and she chose color number 1. And that on our color chart, and let me find the card real quick. I just had that a few minutes ago. So let me find what I have done with that. Well, I just had it. Making sure I didn't lay the blanket on top of it. Let me see if it's on the floor. I know where it is. It was still in my notebook of notes. Okay. And so number 1 is the beige buff. And that for me is going to be, Sylvia's color is going to be the little strings that attach the feathers to the dream catcher. And it's also going to be the intricate design inside the dream catcher. Now this is your blanket. If you do not like your number 1 color to fill in for those, then it's your blanket. You know, you can change it up to what you want. Just because colors are chosen or the dice was rolled doesn't mean that you have to stick to that color. And I know some of you have been kind of, you know, creating your colorway as you go along and have changed it up a little bit from everything chosen. So that is perfectly okay. All right, the next color that we're introducing today was chosen by Jen, and she chose the color for number 6, and that is peach on my chart. And then we also have, and this is all the colors, these colors that were chosen by these people were to represent the string and all 5 feathers. Okay, Then we have Charlie that chose number 4, and that is Carrot. Viola chose number 5, and that is Patty Green. And Mimi Cat Dew chose number 7, which is Real Teal. And Bree chose number 3, which is Cherry Red. Now today we're adding 3 colors, and we're adding Sylvia's number 1, the beige buff. We're adding Jen's number 6, which is the peach. And we're adding Mimi Cat Dew's color, number 7, which is the Real Teal. In the blanket to date, I have gone by every color that the dice in the beginning chose, and then every color that each of you have chosen. At this little section of the blanket on the dream catcher, I hope to not offend anyone, but I am going to go rogue, and I am going to kind of create my own colorway, because I want to be happy with my blanket too. And not saying that I wouldn't, but if we stop and think about the leaf color being red, orange, green, peach, and teal, wow, what a combination. Definitely colorful, but realistically, you probably would not find a dream catcher that had all of those colors. And so maybe the fault is in my own planning and designing before I asked folks to choose colors, that I didn't think that through, very carefully. Granted, I am constantly thinking of color, 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 color. The more color, the better. But in this instance, for the dream catcher, all of those colors do not flow well together. And so I am going to, unfortunately for my dream catcher, not use all of those colors. So if I end up not using your colors, which I'm going to call it out and claim it, Charlie, Viola, and Bree, I will not be using your colors in this dream catcher design, because I am going to work on kind of color coordinating this dream catcher in a way that it would reasonably be purchased, as far as the color concept is. So I'm sticking with the purple that was chosen by Roseanne for the face of the dream catcher. Again, the inside and the strings are all going to be Sylvia's buff beige color. And then for the feathers, I am going to go with Mimi's teal color for this feather, and this feather, and then Jen's color peach for this color and this color. Again, I apologize to Charlie, Viola, and Bree that I am not using the colors that you chose for this section, but it doesn't mean that someone else is not going to use your color choices for theirs, because everyone's color choices are different. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And then these colors here, we have had these colors chosen. I don't remember right off what color they are. I will have to look in my notes. And again, we may alter that a little bit to keep the dream catcher in a unison type colorway, but we'll see. All right. If I remember correctly, the parts that I have highlighted in yellow, which actually represent a color, I do believe one of the 2 colors chosen was yellow. And if that is the case, that color will remain. I just don't remember what the other color is. And I may be wrong. It may not be yellow, but I think that it was, because I remember, for some reason, I have a memory that says, oh my gosh, that's so cool, because that's what I used, was the yellow highlighter in that design. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get started for today. So in order to get started, you need to cut a piece of your yarn, and let's come back to the graph for just a minute. The first thing we're going to start with is creating the string for this first feather. And so you need to cut a piece of yarn that is 40 inches. So whatever color you have chosen to be your string for your dream catcher, you need to cut it in a 40-inch length. Now, if you want, since we have to have 4 more, once you cut your first string for 40 inches, go ahead and take that piece of yarn and cut you 4 more. Now, if you want to continue, measuring out each piece 40 inches, that's fine. Some people, that would be their preference. But if you want to just quickly go ahead and cut you 4 more and put them to the side for later, you can. That is entirely up to you. But once you have your first string yarn, 40-inch yarn cut, we are going to go ahead and get started. So if you look at our row that has our 2 X's in it, we then at the base have one that has 3, then the next one has 3, and then the next one has 4. We're going to put an X right in front of the one that has 4. So let's go ahead and get started. Now again, remember, you want to make sure you leave yourself enough of a tail to weave in. Then I like to pull mine forward and hold it with my fingers as I'm holding the blanket so that it doesn't get, worked in the back under all of my work. Because you want to keep everything looking nice and neat and uniform, even on the side that is the wrong side, the back side. And we're going to go ahead and create that first X. And again, you want to pull it tight enough that the stitches are not going to catch on something when the blanket is complete, but you want them loose enough that they're not so tight that the stitches disappear either. All right. And we're just going to create our little string. So we're going to go right below it and make another X. And this completes the second one. And we're going to do this a total of 7 times. So we're going to make 7 X's, well, a total of 9, but 7 more X's going down below these 2. So we will have a row of 9 X's. There's 3, and we're now working on 4. Trying to make sure I get it in the right hole so it stays uniform. Okay. And that's 5. and 6. And 7. And 8. And this will be number 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, number 9. And so that's what the first part should look like. Okay? All right. Now, if you look, you have a good bit of yarn left over, but I want to show you something. Number one, you always want to have more than not enough because you would hate to have to break up your work. This feather here is a little bit longer and a little bit bigger. And so what I did is I took the bigger one, and that's the one I based the measurement off of. So yes, it did leave you a little bit of a longer tail, but again, I would rather be safe than sorry, because if you'll remember, as we were working on the face of the dream catcher, I ended up not having enough yarn and had to do a magic knot, which you can't even tell. I can't even remember. I know it was somewhere in this area, but I can't even feel it, which is fine, but you'd rather keep it all one piece if possible. So I am measuring just a little bit extra upon the extra to compensate that longer, string there, just to make sure we have enough. So now we're going to go ahead and fasten off and weave in our ends. So go ahead and pause the video and do that, and we will come back and we will begin working on our first feather. So whatever color you want to use, go ahead and get that figured out, and when we come back I will go over the measurements for that piece and all of that. But let's go ahead and get this weaved in first. Welcome back. I hope you got both of your ends weaved in for your string, and now we're going to start with the first feather. Now the piece of yarn that you want to measure out for the first feather needs to be about 180 inches long. Okay, so if you need to pause the video and get that measured out, go ahead and do so, and then come back and join me and we'll go ahead and get our feather started. To start, we are going to come right up here under this first piece of string and attach our feather there by making an X directly below it, just like we were continuing the line from the string. And we're going to do the same thing that we always do. We're going to pull our yarn through, make sure we have enough of a tail left over, and that is more than enough. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that upward so I can hold it up out of the way. And then I'm going to continue making my X. And there is the first part of our feather. Okay. The next part, we are going to make an X directly below it. And just like that. All right, I dropped my little tail, so I'll pick that back up. And the next X, we're going to move to the left of that one and create one more, so there'll be 2 X's on this row. And this will complete that second X. And it will look like this. Now for the next row, we're going to put 3 X's on that row, and we're going to start by going directly below the one we just finished. Making sure that I'm continuing to hold the tail end so that it doesn't get mixed up into these stitches. All right, and this is going to complete this first X. Okay, and to make the other 2 X's, we're going to move to the right of the one we just completed to complete the following 2 X's. And this completes our second one. And now we're going to make one more right here to the right of that one. And that will give us our third one for this row. And this is going to happen, again, we've talked about this before, when you have this much yarn, it's going to tend, the little tail piece, see this is our, not our tail that we'll weave in, but the tail of the yarn from where we fold it onto the needle. So do not be discouraged or think you've done something wrong. Again, this just comes when working with an excessively long piece of yarn. And if you've ever embroidered or crocheted, it's a lot more frustrating with that thread than it is with yarn because it's so tiny and so easy to knot up, where the yarn is a lot thicker and it just is a lot easier to get untangled like that. All right. Just getting it pulled through there, and this will complete the third X for this row. Okay. For the next row, we're going to come out one space to the right to make our next X. And then we're going to move back towards the left, and we will be adding a total of 4 X's to this row. So again, this one kind of stands out from the previous row to make that additional X. And then as we move to the left, the next 3 X's will line up with the 3 X's from above. And again, I'm going to fluff this a little bit so my stitches show very well. And we're just going to keep moving across to the left, making the last 3 stitches for this row. And I think part of what's happening for me, and I'm going to finish this X and then I'll show you, is my length of yarn has caught up with that tail. Yeah, see, it's not, it doesn't have, see, here it is right here. And it doesn't have much further from what we're working with. So let's go ahead and try to slide it up a little bit like that. And then, excuse me, if you grab your needle and then hold it where you slid it up and then just pull it straight. And then now you can see we have a lot more to work with. All right, and let's complete this row. Okay. And this will be the third one. And so that indeed was our issue. So if your yarn is tangling a lot, you might want to just look at where your tail is falling to the part of the yarn that you're actually working with. It just might be too close together and need to be pulled forward some so that the tail moves closer to the needle versus the actual project. All right, and there's number 3, and let's finish number 4 for this row. And this is 4. All right, so here's our feather. It's starting to finally take some shape. Now the next row is going to have 5 X's. So in order to create those 5 X's, we're going to come out 1 over on the next row, like this. So that when we create our 5 X's, it will actually stay in even alignment with the 4 X's from the row above. All right, so there's one. Okay, just making sure my little tail piece is still out the way, and it is. At this point, we should be getting far enough along that we don't have to worry about holding it as much. And this will complete X number 2 for this row, so we'll have 3 more. All right, had a little knot here I had to get worked out. And there we go. So finish pulling that through. And there's our second one. And now working on our third one. Trying to make sure I keep this where you can see it. It's kind of hard when you got a lot of blanket there to hold on to. All right, about to finish X number 3. And now X number 4. And once we finish this fourth one, we'll have one more. All right, and then here's number 5. And whoops, pull it right back out. And as I was telling you, it will line up. Well, it just keeps pulling out. Okay. Here we go. Trying to keep it where you can see it. And as I was saying before, it will line up with the last X from the previous row. And this will complete the 5th X for this row. Okay, and this is our feather so far. Now, we are right here. We've just completed this row of 5 X's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to complete that row of 5 X's 1, 2, 3, 4 more times. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 more times. So go ahead and repeat that row of 5 X's 4 more times. Pause the video, and I will meet back up with you when you finish that last row of 5 X's. Here we are. We have all of those rows done, and it's so funny because looking at it from this angle, and I did adjust my camera a little bit to hopefully help us be able to see it better. All I see is all that white peeking through, but when I'm looking at it, I can see the white, but I can clearly see the feather forming, and it looks a lot better in person than it does looking through the camera. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next row. And I'm making sure my yarn is not getting all tangled up here. Okay. And we're going to come right below that last X we just made. And we're going to do 4 across this row. So we'll end one short from what we've been doing. And I tried to change this, but I think I'm going to have to pause and move it up a little bit so you can see it better. Unfortunately, I've been trying not to say anything, but for those of you who know me at this current moment, I am recovering from back surgery, and I have lost feeling and mobility in my right leg. So I'm having to make adjustments for my videos. And you know, a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, somebody's going to make this blanket, and me having had back surgery is going to be irrelevant, but being able to see this tutorial will be very relevant. And so I'm only sharing so that you can understand the adjustments that I'm having to try and make from my normal tutorials. Unfortunately, my wheelchair will not get as close to my table as, you know, my regular chair would. And the difference is the way my leg sits on the chair versus the wheelchair, and the level of pain that comes from the foot not being elevated. And at least with the wheelchair, it can be elevated a little bit. I am going to pause this for just a minute and see if I can raise this just a tad bit more, that you can see it even better. Of course, I know right now you're seeing it better than you were in the beginning, but and I know this looks crooked, and it's not. It's just the way the blanket is falling, and I'm having a hard time holding it up and doing the tutorial and in my current situation. So I appreciate your understanding. I will be right back. I hope this will help a lot. Okay, so we're going to go make this third X of the 4. Again, I'm making sure that my little weave-in tail is not getting tangled in, and it was. So glad we looked. All right, and the last half of X number 3 for this row. And then here's number 4. And this will be the last X that we're adding to this row. We're beginning to create the tip of the feather now. Okay, and that finishes that row. And so now we're going to move to the next row, and we're only going to do 3 X's, but that first X is going to come right underneath the last one that we just did on the previous row. All right. Oh, I'm so excited how this is turning out. And here is the first X. And now the second. And now we're going to do the third one, which is also the last one for this row. And I've noticed right here where my tail intersects on the yarn I'm working with, it's folded and created a little bit of a knot. So let me work that out. And there we go. And then the last stitch to finish up that third X. And we are almost finished with our feather. This next row we're going to do 2 X's, and we're going to come right underneath the last one that we made on the previous row to make our first one, so it lines up right underneath it. And now the second one, which will be the last X for this row. Oh, that is so pretty. And this completes the last X for this row. The next row is also going to have 2 X's, and they're going to fall. Both those X's are going to fall right underneath the 2 that we created in the previous row. And working on the last X of this row, and then we have 1 row left, and on that row we are just going to do, oops, lost my needle. We are just going to do 1 X. So this is finishing up the last X of this row here. All right. And for this very last stitch to create the tip of our feather, we are going to do it not underneath the X we just completed, but we're going to do it underneath the other one so that it looks like this. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. And completing this X. And there we go. There is our first feather. Oh my goodness, I love it, I love it, I love it. And it's so funny because this is purple, and I don't feel like it really shows up purple, and my teal looks black. But I'm going to bring my light down here, one of my lights, so hopefully you can see those colors, because it's just not doing justice for it. You can kind of see the teal there and the purple, but Oh my goodness, this is not doing justice. So maybe when I take the picture, it will show up a lot better in different lighting. But anyway, sorry, not trying to make you dizzy. But that is it. Now, as you can see, we do have a good bit of yarn left over. And I apologize because some of you are going to say that I wasted it. You know, I will save this. I will use this scrap somewhere else, you know, whether in amigurumi or just to add on to something else to give it, you know, a little bit of a short thing of color or something. It will not go to waste in my house. But again, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So if you'll go ahead and get your ends weaved in, and then go ahead and get your string color ready. For the next one, we're going to complete one more feather today. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start the string for the next feather. Again, I know my blanket looks crooked. I promise you that it's not. Again, it's just the way I'm having to hold it. I, again, cannot sit as close to the table as I'd like because of my current status in the wheelchair. So just bear with me. So to start this second feather, we need to create our string, just like here. And so we're going to start in this first X that is right here in front of the long row of X's. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that started. Again, do not forget to leave yourself a tail long enough to be able to weave in those ends. And we're going to go ahead and get our first X made. And there it is. And just like this one, we need a total of 9. So you're going to make 8 more X's just going straight down, one right underneath the next one, until you have a total of 9. So go ahead and pause the video and I'll meet you back as soon as you have your 9 made. Before you come back, go ahead and weave in any ends that you have and get your next color ready for your next feather, and I'll meet you back there. Welcome back. We have our next string ready, so we are ready to add the next feather, and my next feather is going to be done in this peach color that was chosen by Jen. And so to get started, just like the last one, we're going to come right to the bottom of the string and we're going to make our first X right below it as if it were part of the string itself. So let me get it in the right hole here. Oh, I did, and then I pulled it right back out. Trying to keep the blanket flat so you can see it. And sometimes it pulls it right back out. And again, I want to make sure I leave enough of a tail for weaving in. And, well, I'm just knocking y'all all the way around the place. Sorry about that. And we're just going to complete that X. And there is the first X. It's kind of light, but it's not on my end. It shows up very well and it's very, very pretty. All right, so the next row, we're going to add 2 X's. We're going to add one right here underneath this one. And then we're going to go to the left and add the second one. So let's go ahead and get those 2 X's added on. And there's the first one. And let's make the second one. And I pulled my needle right back out. Okay, so this is my problem. I'm trying to keep the blanket straight. I'm trying not to hit the camera. And it is not working in my favor. But I will not be defeated. Just because I've had to modify my situation, I am not modifying this for you. All right. And I let go of my tail. So it's created a little bit of a tangle there, but now there we go. So my tail to weave in, let me pull that. Okay. And I may have to readjust the blanket again for you to actually see this part of it. And I think I'm going to, as soon as I finish this stitch here. So let's get this last X for this row made, and then I will adjust the camera. There we go. All right, I'll be right back. Hopefully you can see this a little bit better. So now for this third row, we're going to put 4 X's on. And to do that, we're going to make one over here out from, so it'll stick out. And that'll be 1, and then 2 lined with that one, 3 lined with that one, and 4 sticking out on that end. So let's go ahead and get that started. Again, I'm trying to keep my weaving tail out the way. While I work on the first X of this row. And now the second. Caught a piece of the towel that I have as my base here to keep the light from reflecting off the table. All right. And completing that second X. And now the third X. the fourth one. And there we go. There's our 4 X's. Okay, hope you can see that. I know that that peach may have a hard time showing up. There's a little bit more light on the situation. Okay. All right. Trying to keep it where you can see it and I can work on it. All right. Now, for the next row, we are going to add 5. And we are going to start with 1 right here, right up underneath this one, 2, 3, 4, and our 5th one will stick out. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Let me make sure I see where that's going to be, and this is it here. Okay. And this completes the first X. And now working on the second one. And the third one. And the fourth one. And now we're going to make the 5th one, and again, it's going to stick out from the previous row. And this will make the 5th X for this row. And there we go. All right, let's take a look at the graph, because just like with this feather, we're going to complete that row of 5 several times. So we just completed this one here, and we're going to do it 1, 2, 3, 4 more times. So we're going to do 4 rows of 5, and they will stay completely lined up with one another. This is creating that body of the feather. So go ahead and pause the video and complete 4 more rows of 5 X's, and I will meet up with you when you get there. Okay, so we have those extra 4 rows done of the 5 stitches, and now we're going to start tapering our feather down to the tip. So this next row, we're going to do 4, and we're going to come right below this last one that we did, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then it'll leave this last one right here empty. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So this is the first one for this row of 4. I got pulled a little tight, so let me fluff it a little bit. And the last half of this first one. All right, and then the second one. And now the third one. And then we're only going to do, oops, one more for this row. And that will finish this one up. And there's some kind of dark fuzz on there, so I'm going to pull that off. And that's a little bit tight. Okay. And that is the last one, number 4. Like that. All right, and then for the next row, we're going to do 3. So let me get my needle here. We're going to skip the space underneath this one, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Okay? So let's come over here. And I apologize, you can't see that. Let me get my needle in, and then I'll straighten the blanket. There we go. And that completes 1. 2. And then the last one for this row, number 3. And I pulled that one a little bit tight, so let me fluff it. And then I'll kind of, there we go. And the last half of that third one. There we go. And then for the next row, we're going to do 2, but we're going to come in 1. We're going to skip this one that's right underneath this first one here, and we're going to do 1, 2. And there's that first one. And the last one for this row. All right, and that completes the second one. All right, and the next row, we're going to do 2, and we're going to do them right underneath those same ones. Oops, sorry. You get it where you can see it. And again, these 2 are right underneath the same 2 from the previous row. And here is the second one. And after we finish this, we will just do 1 stitch on the next row. And we're going to come right underneath the stitch that we just made on the previous row to make that very last one. This is the top point of this feather. And here's our dream catcher with the first 2 feathers from today. This does not look teal in the camera to me, but it is teal and peach. This is beige, and this is purple. Well, this has been Funday Monday, episode 24 of the Longmire Blanket. And I look forward to coming back next week and adding the last 3 feathers for our dream catcher. Until then, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, and make your own joyful creations. Bye, everyone.